Hey y'all, it's the multifaceted mom, aka Lataya, and I'm back with another video. I want us to talk about anger because over the last 5 years, I have been in therapy. If you guys do not know, I am recently divorced. I would say probably like a year now. And besides that, I have always been known to really snap at people, snap when people have me messed up. I think that, a lot of times I used to check it up to just me being the Aries, fire sign, fire personality. And I really just was a no bullshit type of person, but actually I was. However, I feel like a lot of people just knew, like, oh yeah, emotionally, I just wasn't mature. And it probably wasn't a name for it back then, but I think that like now looking back after therapy, yeah, your girls was emotionally immature. But I am really here to tell you though that anger, okay, and I don't know who needs to hear this, but this is a public service announcement. Anger is your friend, babes, because anger is a very important emotion that we all need. And the reality is that with anger, we tend to demonize it. We tend to make anger this bad thing. But the thing is, anger is just an emotion and it's not good or bad. But what is good or bad is how we express our anger. So let's break it down. The way you express your anger is what is in fact good or bad. Or if we don't want to use those words, let's use more, clinically acceptable terms. Healthy or not healthy. And if y'all don't know, I am in graduate school to become a therapist. I'll be a therapist this year. But over the last 5 years, I've been in therapy and I have learned so much about myself, where my anger has come from, why I have anger. And the thing is, a lot of the times, the actual emotion of anger has nothing to do with you being a good or bad person. The anger, in fact, really informs you when people have you fucked up or when you have yourself fucked up. What is unhealthy is lashing out at people. And I just want to give a couple tips that my therapist have gave me and I plan to give my clients. Lashing out of anger is indeed unhealthy. So before, your girl, when you went off on me, when you was disrespectful to me, when I felt disrespected, I lashed out. I snapped. I said, you got me fucked up. I said, shut the F up. Like, I used a lot of vulgar language. I hit below the belt. When you hurt me, I go below the belt. And hell, we could go to hell if you want. And that's how I used to be. And I feel like now I honestly, intentionally might have those thoughts like, oh, I could say this, but I'm not going to, because I've become more emotionally mature over the years, not only from going to therapy, but really just kind of learning and healing and understanding why I am angry. And that's kind of where I want to, go to the next section of this, because when I say anger is your friend, it really is your friend. So if people always say like, oh, you just so mad, you are always so angry, you lashing out. Babe, our higher selves don't lash out. We're not going to let people control who we are, because that's in fact what lashing out is. We are letting every situation that makes us angry or pisses us off change our energy in that moment. We let it change who we want to be in that moment. We could be professional. We can be productive. We can be really on our boss babe shit. And next thing you know, somebody pisses us off and it takes us right back down where we never wanted to be. And the thing is, lashing out has consequences. Lashing out doesn't even give the other person the opportunity to even reflect on themselves, because you done already took the justice in your own hands. And if you don't know, we Christian over here, or at least believe in God, because God says that he is the person that he is the person that's the judge. He's the jury. He provides the justice. You don't need to do anything but sit pretty and let your father handle it. But that took me a long time to learn, because I used to just feel this internal burning sensation to get mother effers back. Like, you call me a bitch, I'm calling you a bitch right back. This really was in effect in my last relationship, because I used to, whenever he would call me a name, I wouldn't make it no better. I'm calling him a name right back. It wasn't until the end of our relationship where I started to kind of revert and say, no, I'm not going to play these games. I'm not doing name calling and walking away. But that was after my therapist had to bang me upside the head and say, just because he does this, just because this person does this, don't mean that you have to react. That's not what a boundary is. A boundary is not, if you say this, then I'm going to snap on you. You're really just being the same person they are. You really are just being just as unhealthy as they are. A healthy person actually does the complete opposite. And a healthy person doesn't necessarily tolerate disrespect, but what you do is you learn how to not tolerate it by walking away and also staying true to yourself. Because if you really think about it, every time somebody pisses you off and you either snap on them, you going below the belt, you being so hurtful on purpose, God is not looking at, oh, well, they did do this to you, so, you know, you have to get them back. I get it, girl. He looking at, oh, well, how are you going to react to what they did? Are you going to be my godly daughter and walk away? Or are you going to be just as bad as them and then sin to make yourself feel better? Get that justice for yourself instead of me and letting me handle it. That is the difference. And that's kind of what I have learned over the last 5 years, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. It really took me a good, a good 4 years to learn this concept, because I used to feel like if I went off, that is teaching the other person that they cannot and should not ever try me again. But the thing is, just because you went off on somebody or you met their energy with the same energy they gave you, it does not mean that they won't do it again. All it means is that you have created this dynamic in which now this person thinks it's okay to be disrespectful to you, so long as you be disrespectful to them, and y'all go kumbaya back again. For me, my anger doesn't necessarily come from, you know, strangers, or I don't really lash out with strangers. I could care less about what a stranger does. However, where my anger comes in is where people close to me have me fucked up. And I tend to hit below the belt. I tend to really lash out when I feel ultimately disrespected. And I can be essentially getting disrespected and just calling it for what it is. But it does not mean, and I've learned this, it does not mean that you then match their disrespect with disrespect. What I want to shift into is us matching energy, but instead learning how to sit in our anger and keep it cute, pausing and not reacting, and actually thinking about how we're going to handle the situation and how we're not going to let ourselves be disrespected again. That's where boundaries come in. Okay? So something that my therapist has actually taught me that really, really helped me, and this was actually my recent therapist, because I feel like my marriage therapist used to kind of tell me this, like, you know, don't react when he does this, don't react. And I would just be like, it took me back to the little child in middle school that used to get bullied and used to have to be so scared to get suspended instead of really fighting somebody or reacting and lashing out. So I feel like I bottled that all up. And when I got into a relationship where I felt like I couldn't leave because I got kids with this person and I'm married, when I felt trapped in that, all I did was lash out. All I did was react. I lashed out. I acted in anger. I met his anger with my anger. It was kind of like a power struggle. And all that did was shift any blame or any responsibility that he had to take onto me, because it was my reactions that he then shifted the blame to. And now that I know better, I would never let that happen ever again. However, if you are in that situation, that's why people say when you are in a relationship, work on yourself. Like, if y'all can't go to marriage counseling together, work on yourself, because you're going to start learning certain things that are healthy just for you as a person, and then that's kind of going to shine light on how unhealthy the other person is and exactly why you reacted that way. For me, it was me feeling like I gotta get justice, I gotta defend myself, really finding a root of your anger or why you lash out. Not your anger, but why you lash out is extremely important. What anger also tells us is that people have crossed our boundaries. People have crossed our boundaries, or when I say that anger lets you know that you have yourself fucked up, it also, something I used to do, I used to get very upset at my friends for maybe not returning the same energy and friendship as myself. And that was because I overextended myself in trying to be a friend to people. People can call me, my friends can call me at 3 o'clock in the fucking morning, complaining about the same person, complaining about the same man or whatever. I'm on the phone. I'm waking up out of my sleep no matter what I have going on. This is even after motherhood. I am there for my friends at a drop of a dime. And while I contributed that to being a good friend, I also expected that in return. And everybody is not like you. Everybody has a right to not be like you. Everybody has a right to be a good friend in a different type of way. However, that's where I had myself messed up, because I used to ignore my own needs for the sake of my friends, and I expected that from other people, and when it wasn't returned, I would get angry. And my reaction with my friends was more so cutting people off. Like, I'm blocking you for a certain amount of time, I'm not talking to you, or I'm acting funny or whatever, I'm kind of distant. But in reality, my hurt really just came from the disappointment that you didn't extend yourself the same way I extended myself. When in reality, extending yourself, pouring from an empty cup, is still not healthy overall. And when you have anger rooted in other people crossing your boundaries, I remember my ex used to say, like, yeah, when you start going to therapy, you became an angrier person. And my family said that as well. But the reality is that I only became an angrier person because I realized how many people had me fucked up from a very young age. Like, let's keep it a buck. Like, I remember having to deal with a lot of bullshit in my family, passive aggressive bullshit, things that I don't think a child should have to deal with and tolerate just for the sake of them being a child and not being seen, or being seen and not heard. A lot of my anger came from there. A lot of my anger came from boundaries being crossed. Being called out of your name is a boundary that is a limit that somebody else is kind of surpassing, and they are essentially disrespecting your boundary. That's where my anger came. So the anger, it was nothing wrong with the anger being there. However, the way I handled it was what was wrong. So my number one tip is really, my therapist would tell me, like, sit in your anger for 5 minutes. That was my number one tip. Sit in your anger. Literally put a timer on your phone and put it for 5 minutes and just sit in it. Feel all your emotions, whether you want to journal about it, voice memos. Y'all, I had so many voice memos that I used to say the meanest. I used to get it all out. Say all the mean shit and just express it. Getting that anger out and just feeling your feelings for 5 minutes is the bossiest shit that you can fucking do for yourself, period. The person that's lashing out, ready to fight, ready to throw stuff, ready to cuss people out, that's emotionally immature. Because you're letting other people control who you are. But when you really sit in your emotions and you sit in your anger and you understand, like, okay, This is why it has got me fucked up. This is where I went wrong. This I feel violated. I feel disrespected. You able to name these feelings, name these emotions. You feel violated. You feel disrespected. You feel hurt. You feel sad. Like, you're able to really name the underlying emotion under anger. Then you get to the root of the problem. Because the root of the problem may be, oh, your friend, let's say your friend, let's use a friend. Your friend didn't, she wasn't there for you when you were going through your breakup, like you was there for her when she was going through her breakup, right? Let's say that's the underlying that's the situation. So you're sad, you're emotionally hurt, and instead of going off like, be worried, you was stupid, why didn't you would, like, instead of going off, really sit in your emotions and say, damn, I'm mad because I sacrificed vital things that were important to me in the moment that it was important to me, whether that be sleep, whether you stopped what you was doing, maybe you was working on goals and you just stopped what you was doing. That's when you need to understand that this is the time to say, okay, let me take responsibility for my own emotions and understand that I put myself in that situation. And I need to have a boundary that says, if I'm going to work on a task, if I'm going to do anything, I can't stop what I'm doing to help other people in their lives and what they got going on. Because the reality is that whether you stop and help them, you are not Captain Save a Friend, Save a Hoe. You are not in charge of that. God is ultimately in charge of that. So if you want to stop what you're doing to say a quick 2-minute prayer and say, I'm going to call you back, that's the boundary that you need to set. Instead of not having any boundaries and just overextending yourself, just feeling like you need to save everybody, the boundary is, okay, I am going to respect my own time, so I don't have myself fucked up. Because she didn't have you fucked up by not answering your calls or not being there the exact same way that you wanted her to be there for you, or that you were there for her. She had her own set of boundaries, her own set of rules that she went by. Now it's time for you to really look at, how can I respect myself more in the situation, so then I can respect her process as well for however she can show up for me. And that's kind of how you navigate anger. I'm going to end it there because I wanted to really just kind of spread awareness. I think anger has this big, like, negative, icky feeling towards it. And honestly, it's really not all that negative. It's really about how you express your anger. It's really about what you do with the emotion. It's kind of like life is going to keep lifing, but it's how you react to it. Same with emotions. Emotions are going to show up. Jealousy, envy, all of these icky emotions that have negative connotations around it. But it's really about what you do with that emotion that really makes it healthy or not healthy. But that's it for today. If you like more, make sure you like and subscribe. See you.